The untold story of the 1942 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that lived through war. The 1942 Jefferson Nickel is not just a 5-cent coin. It is a silent witness to one of the most dramatic periods in modern history. When most people look at this coin, they see an old, worn piece of metal. But for collectors, historians, and storytellers, this nickel represents survival, sacrifice, and transformation during World War II. Every scratch, every faded detail, and every edge of this coin carries the weight of a nation at war. In 1942, the United States was fully drawn into World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor. The entire country shifted its focus toward supporting the war effort. Factories stopped making consumer goods and began producing weapons, vehicles, and military supplies. Even everyday objects, including coins, were affected. Metal was no longer just metal. It was a strategic resource. Copper and nickel were desperately needed for ammunition and military equipment, and this pressure forced the U.S. Mint to rethink how coins were made. The Jefferson Nickel, first introduced in 1938, originally contained a copper-nickel alloy. By 1942, this composition became a problem. Nickel was critical for producing armor and weapons, and the government could no longer afford to waste it on coins. This is where the story of the 1942 Jefferson Nickel becomes truly fascinating. That year, the U.S. Mint made a historic decision that would forever separate ordinary nickels from wartime nickels. Early in 1942, some Jefferson nickels were still produced using the traditional metal composition. However, later that same year, the Mint introduced a new wartime alloy made of 35% silver, 56% copper, and 9% manganese. This was the first time in U.S. history that silver was used in a 5-cent coin. This single decision turned an everyday coin into a historical artifact, one of the most important visual clues of a wartime. Jefferson Nickel is the large mint mark above, Monticello on the reverse side. Before 1942, mint marks were small and placed to the side, but wartime nickels proudly displayed a large P, D, or S above the Monticello building. This bold change was intentional. It allowed the government to easily identify and later remove these coins from circulation once the war ended. The Monticello building itself, shown on the back of the coin, symbolizes stability and democracy during a time when the world was collapsing under conflict. This image reminded Americans of their values and their resolve. On the front side, the portrait of Thomas Jefferson represents leadership, vision, and independence, qualities the nation desperately needed during wartime. What makes the 1942 Jefferson Nickel even more powerful is that it circulated in the hands of ordinary people during extraordinary times. Soldiers carried these coins in their pockets. Families used them to buy bread, newspapers, and milk. Children saved them without realizing they were holding silver. Mint marks, varieties, and the hidden differences of the 1942 Jefferson Nickel. Understanding the 1942 Jefferson Nickel requires more than just looking at the date. This single year produced multiple varieties, each with its own story, value, and importance. What makes this coin especially fascinating is that two completely different compositions were struck in the same year, creating confusion for casual collectors and excitement for serious numismatists. The first key detail every collector must examine is the mint mark. In 1942, Jefferson nickels were produced at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Philadelphia originally carried no mint mark on the obverse. Denver coins displayed a small D, and San Francisco coins showed an S. However, everything changed later that year with the introduction of the wartime silver alloy. When the United States Mint switched to the silver-based composition, a bold design change was introduced. The mint mark was moved to a large position above Monticello on the reverse side of the coin. This was revolutionary. For the first time in U.S. history, the Philadelphia Mint used a P mint mark on a circulating coin. This single letter instantly tells collectors that the coin was struck during wartime using silver. This creates 2 main categories of 1942 Jefferson nickels. The early 1942 nickels were made of the traditional copper-nickel alloy and do not contain silver. These coins look similar to nickels from other years and often go unnoticed. The late 1942 nickels, however, are the famous wartime issues made with silver, easily identified by the large mint mark above Monticello. To the untrained eye, both versions may appear nearly identical. But to a collector, the difference is dramatic. The wartime silver nickels often have a slightly duller, grayer tone due to the silver content. Over time, they may develop a unique patina that sets them apart from regular nickels. This subtle visual difference is one of the reasons many silver nickels remained in circulation for years without being discovered. Another layer of excitement comes from dye varieties and mint errors. During wartime, production was rushed. The mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coins quickly, and this urgency led to mistakes. These mistakes are now highly sought after by collectors. Doubled dyes, repunched mint marks, and misaligned strikes can significantly increase a coin's value. One of the most talked about varieties is the 1942 D over D, repunched mint mark. In this case, the D was stamped more than once, creating a visible doubling effect. While not extremely common, this variety adds an extra level of intrigue for collectors who enjoy searching for hidden details. The San Francisco Mint also produced some fascinating wartime nickels. Coins from this mint often show softer strikes, meaning the details may appear less sharp. While some collectors prefer bold details, others value